everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today I have for you my January wrap up and my February TBR slash pile of possibilities. So this is going to be slightly chaotic. Towards the end of January, I fell pretty hard into a slump, and the reason being I just was exhausted. So um, we're all kind of feeling antsy. We've had some snow days and nice weather days in January. So the last week of January was really hard because it was like our first week back, since full week back since winter break, and I just came home exhausted and it was hard to read. So I was starting things and putting them down and starting something else and putting them down. So I want to finish what I've started. So more than slightly chaotic, but let's get started. I did read 5 books, I think, in January. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 6. 6 books in January, 2 of which were rereads. And I feel like that number is kind of deceptive because I'm like on 560 in Count of Monte Cristo. And I read that all in January. So it's kind of deceptive when you consider that. And I am reading some books for professional development for work. But let's get started. So first, I read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is her second and final book in the Enchanted Letters duology. And this is set in a fantasy setting with World War I vibes, as there's trench warfare and poisonous gas, things that were used in World War I. And this continues the story of Roman and Iris, and they're both reporters for a newspaper, and they were sent to the war front, and it just continues their story. It's hard to talk about this book without giving spoilers, but I feel like this was a wonderful conclusion to the duology. The prose, again, was just absolutely beautiful, and I have Enchanted River, is that it? Or River Enchanted? I don't remember. She has an adult duology. I have that on my TBR, at least the first one, for later this year. And I cannot wait to read more by Rebecca Ross. I thought she is a wonderful author. The next book I read was Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. This also is, excuse me, a sequel in the Wild Robot series. And this continues our story of Roz. She is a robot who, her shipping crate that she was in gets washed up on a wild island, and she is forced to learn how to survive on that island in our first book. This second book just furthers her adventures, and it was just delightful. I can't wait to read book 3 in the series. And there's a picture in here that it was just so beautiful. Like, I almost cried seeing that picture. And I would love if it'd be so wonderful if he did a thing where he made his pictures from his book so that way, we could frame them and hang them up for art, because I so would hang that picture up. It was just so beautiful. So there's beautiful illustrations in here as well. And I think this is it's marketed for 8 to 10-year-olds, and I thoroughly support this series for kids that age. And I realize I'm not giving out star rankings. Rebecca Ross, 5 out of 5. Wild Robot, I think 4.5 out of 5. I did struggle with some pacing issues in there. Then we've got Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, and this is the story of, I can't remember her name, Elizabeth Zott, and she is a chemist in the late 50s, early 60s, and of course she faces misogyny and sexism and harassment. Trigger warning for on-page rape at the beginning. So she faces all of that as she's trying hard to be a chemist, and she actually ends up having a cooking show. And I wanted to like this book. I know people loved this book. I wanted to like it. I had I felt like all of the characters were kind of caricatures, and the situations that happened, some of them were just very over the top for me, that I had a hard time taking it seriously. Like their backstories, I had a I had a very hard time taking seriously. And while again, and same with 630. I love 630. If you read this book, you know who 630 is. I had a hard time following, like believing 630's backstory. So there were just some things that I just thought were not believable. And so that's why I gave it a 3 star. It was disappointing. I understand why people really liked this book. I think it would have been a more powerful book had it not been, some things had been so over the top or caricatures. I think if it had it been that, it would have made a stronger impact for me. Reading is subjective, folks. The next book I read was Keeper of the Lost City Everblaze by Shannon Messenger. And I'm going to work hard to get as much of this series completed this year. I think book 2 suffered for me because there was such a year-long gap between book 1 and book 2, and so I struggled with remembering some things. And some authors will kind of remind you of what happened in previous books. Shannon Messenger did not, so I kind of had struggled. This one did not suffer from pacing issues. I felt book 2 suffered from pacing issues. This one I really enjoyed. I enjoyed further learning about the world and learning about the different secret societies in this. There was something towards the end that reminded me of Harry Potter, some of the later books of Harry Potter. So that kind of made this book suffer for me. And I felt like I had some problems with Dax in this book. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading book 4. I probably will tackle book 4 during middle grade March, because February is going to be a little wildly chaotic. But I would give this a 4.5. Probably more 4. The next I read The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. And actually I listened to it. I've already read this before. And so I listened to it. This is part of my virtual book club that I'm in. And I thoroughly enjoyed it again. I thought the narrator did a wonderful job. I will say this, on this reread, there is a romance in this book, and I really honestly feel like it didn't need the romance. I think this book would have been stronger without the romance, detracting from the themes of what it's like to be Native American in America, what it's like to, excuse me, not only be Native American, but have, she's mixed race, so she is half Native American on her father's side and white on her mother's side. And those themes, and then also what it means to be a woman in Native American culture and the lack of justice for some crimes against women that they have. So I think some things kind of detracted from all those themes being further developed. I still think it's wonderful, but I will say this, if you're looking for a really good thriller, because this is a thriller mystery, and I felt like some of that stuff was pretty obvious to me. So if you're looking for that, I would not read it for that. I would read it for, if you want to learn more what it's like to be a Native American female today. That's what I would read it for. And then lastly, I listened to, and I've read it before, I don't have it with me, But I did listen to Amari and the Night Brothers, so that way I could then read Amari and the Great Game. I'm planning on reading this in middle grade March. I love Amari and the Night Brothers. I think it's wonderful. Sorry, I need to get something to drink. Excuse me. This is unedited, folks. I don't know how to edit, and so that's why it's unedited. I enjoy Amari and the Night Brothers. The narrator of the audiobook, I did not enjoy. It's so weird. So there's a character who says ye, like supposed to be like a Scottish accent, I think. But she did not do a Scottish accent at all. It's just like she read the same lines and just said ye in it. And a lot of the voices sound the same. So, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. So there's that. Okay. So now let's talk about some books that I've started and like either put down, struggled through with, wherever I'm at. So first, I've got Arcanum Unbounded. So I've slowly been working my way through the Cosmere in publication order. And I've got some other stories to read in here, technically, before I read Edge Dancer. And I've tried and tried, and I'm just struggling to get through them. So I asked some people on a Discord that I'm in. I said, hey, can I skip these? Do I really have to read them? And they said, you can, but you need to make sure to read Edge Dancer. So that's not a problem. So I started Edge Dancer. I'm like maybe 10 pages into Edge Dancer. So I do hope to finish Edge Dancer this month. For a professional development, I'm working on The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog by Bruce D. Perry, MD, PhD, and Maya, I cannot pronounce her last name, so I'm going to just show that. And so this is written, he is a child psychiatrist. One of the children that he's worked with, he worked with the children that came out of the Branch Davidian complex, led by David Koresh out in Waco, Texas. And so each chapter is like case notes of working with different children and what each child or group has taught him about brain development and how the brain responds to trauma, and then what we need to do in order to promote healthy development and kind of reverse, if we can, some of that change the brain patterns and what is done to the body. And it's a hard read. It is very much a hard read. And I'm just going at it. Every other week, I'm meeting via Zoom with a group of educators who are reading this. And so just 2 chapters every other week. So, like I said, I'm enjoying it. If you're an educator, if you work with children, I do recommend this. Be prepared. It is very hard to read. So I say read a chapter, take a break, read another chapter, take a break. Okay, then this week, because I was really struggling to figure out what to read, I did start Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. And basically this is about 2 different archaeologists, and they are in search of the long lost remains of a warrior in the Aztec Empire. And they're also having to battle, I think, artifact smugglers. So I'm on page 226. It's okay. It's not great. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was growing up and realized, like, I can't handle being out on digs. Like, I don't like camping. So that's kind of like the fun aspect for me, is to live vicariously through these characters. I'm also reading The Chonky Beast of the Count of Monte Cristo. I've been trying to read 19 pages a day. This past week was a real struggle for me. I should be on page 743. I'm on 566. So I'm behind. I do have a 3.5-day weekend over President's Day weekend because we have parent-teacher conferences and President's Day weekend. So hopefully I can play catch up. But I am really enjoying this. There are a couple of chapters that are kind of sloggy. There's one where he kind of puts out his ideology. There are a couple chapters at the very beginning, and I say ideology because the chapter is called ideology. There's a couple of chapters at the beginning about Napoleon and King Louis the 17th, and just like the different factions that are coming into play. So this takes place like during the time that Napoleon is on the Isle of Elba, and there's a threat that he'll come back into power. Then during the 100-Day War, when he actually does come back into power for a little bit, and then afterwards. So more so, the majority of the book takes place after that, several years after that. Yeah, and I am really enjoying it, much more than I thought I would, because I looked at it, it's chunky, and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be like Les Mis by Victor Hugo, where I tried to read it, and I just have not been able to get past the Abbey chapters and page 200, and I was like, I hope it's not going to be like that. Nope, it's very readable, very, very readable, so looking forward to continuing in that. I'm almost done with another book for professional development, and that is Habits of Highly Effective Teachers, The Ultimate Guide to Practical Behavior Management by Marie Amaro. It's okay. I'm on chapter 8 of 9. I think I've got one more chapter. So I'll be able to finish, well, I have to finish this up in February. I was hoping to learn something new. I don't feel like I did, just like kind of, I'm more like reminded, like, remember, Emily, you have to do this, and not. It's easy to be tired and not, I don't know how to say. It's for me, it's very easy to see what students are not doing that they should be doing and point out the negative. And I think we're trained to do that. And I very much had a couple of principals who were like, you have to be that way. That's not how good classroom management. And so I've had to learn how to break that. And so it's just reminded me, like, yes, you need to continue to work towards making sure that you're acknowledging the positive and the good that people are doing and not the negative. Okay. All right. So then just more fun reads. It is Retro Romance February. So Storm from Storm Reads and Sarah from the Bookish Knitter, they're doing retro romance. So I need some lighter books to lighten up my Count of Monte Cristo and another book that I'm reading. So you just have to read one book to say that you participated. So I'm hoping to read The Enchanted Land by Jude Devereaux. Look at that cover. Like, this is an original book that came out in 1978. That's amazing. So, and this one is about Kentucky, and so I'm going to just read the back. The Enchanted Land lay west of the bluegrass splendors of her Kentucky home, east of the gold-dappled salons of San Francisco, beneath the star-spangled skies of New Mexico, and within the powerful and tender embrace of one man. Love had made Morgan Wakefield beautiful, for as Seth Coulter's lips lit her heart afire, her tousled hair fell golden, her face blushed amber, and men could not live without her. From a Spaniard's captive to a land baron's wife, Morgan endured, for always she held in her heart the beloved caress of the man who defied a continent's dangers to possess her. Is that not more retro? You can't get more retro than that. So there you go. I also, for a virtual book club, I need to read, oh, rats. Nope, I don't want to do that. All right. Well, you can't see it now. It wants me to enter my passcode. Letters for Lucian. So this is an ebook, and that's by Susie England. And from what I gather, it is. So it's not spoilery for me to say this because you start kind of backwards with the end, and then you work for like towards the end. So we're looking at a couple, and I don't know their names. I can't remember. I just started it. I've read maybe the first chapter. So it's a couple, and they are dealing with grief from the loss of their infant son. Lucian is from what I understand. And apparently they wrote letters to their son. And so then you start with their grieving that loss, but then I think it goes back to like pre-pregnancy and pregnancy, I think. I'm not 100% sure. So please hear that trigger warning. It is, you're dealing with infant death. And my virtual book club, we're going to have the author on. And lastly, if I can get through, I just lost it. Sorry, I had a brain fart moment. If I could get through Edge Dancer and I can finish and make good progress and or make like almost finish Count of Monte Cristo, I'm going to start Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. And this is book 3 in the Stormlight Archives. And so I can't really go into it, but this is set on the world of Roshar in the Cosmere, and it follows Kaladin and Shallan and Jasna and Dalinar as they battle the Parshendi. And gosh, it's so complicated, and it's so funny because Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, when you combine them, that's easily 1,100 pages. No, 2,100 pages of text. And yet I feel like I'm just delving into the world and understanding the world. So I do want to finish Stormlight Archive this year because Wind and Truth Stormlight 5 comes out. All right, and lastly, one last thing to note. I am participating in a Candyland game. So Sonia with an I and Tiffany from Beach Bum Bookworm, they have put together this Candyland game, and it's just a way to get to make people aware of content creators on YouTube and Instagram. So if you go to their channels, they have videos announcing the Candyland, and there's a game, and each content creator is like assigned like a donut or an ice cream cone or whatever. And so you progress your way on the board, and if you pass that like icon, then you go to one of those content creators and watch one of their videos, leave a comment, and tell us what you're reading. So participate in that. So thank you so much to Tiffany and to Sonia. And that's all I'm reading. Like I said, it seems very chaotic because my brain this last week of January was very chaotic as I struggled with staying awake and knowing what to read. So February is going to be really interesting. Have a wonderful Saturday, and as always, please like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and tell me in the comments what you're reading and what you think I should prioritize. Bye.